Party people, oh, what's happening with you? Don't worry, it's the same cat. Just low fade showing. Just went ahead and cut it all off. I'm feeling good, feeling fresh. I'm just got to get used to it. Forgive me. But what's up? What's happening? Happy Thursday to you. I know it's draft day. Listen, football season ain't really here yet. Okay, new names getting called, money bags getting filled. This is a conversation you don't want to miss, though. We got a whole lot in store. This is actually a brand new kind of whole feature and setup that we are doing since we've been doing this for 4 years now, roughly. And so this is something that is definitely a fresh perspective, a fresh look, and we're excited to do it with you guys, to include you guys in this first ever live reaction. So we've got a dope video that we're going to cook up and react to live. So we're not cutting to any kind of video. We're not cutting to anything like that. We just going to go straight into it after our typical preliminaries and just have some conversation and dialogue in between the clips. I'm sure you guys have seen plenty of reaction videos across your social platforms, and it's going to be something similar. And we invite you guys' thoughts all throughout it. Okay. If you're unfamiliar with this platform, first of all, welcome in. You could have been anywhere else and you chose to be here. For that, we're grateful. This is a place where we are just dedicated to striving to truth. Okay. It doesn't matter where you're coming from or worldview you believe in. We all got one. And we are looking to simply just have an open floor to open conversation with a similar goal in mind. All right. So if you were here with us last week, we always have some kind of homework. We've been reading through the book of Isaiah, which has been a phenomenal read. Only from my remembrance of my previous study on Isaiah, but seeing what you guys have been taking away from it, I know it's been phenomenal for you guys too. So even if you're not in the book of Isaiah and you're doing some Bible study, whatever the case is, man, drop your thoughts, man, what you're studying. Let us know what you're reading, what you're catching. And if you guys are in the Discord, definitely come through and drop your homework there. We're excited for that. And as always, we're live over here on YouTube and Twitch. You guys can jump in and get this Maverick membership for the free. We got wonderful people that are looking to even gift, Maverick memberships, man, and looking to bless you. And so there's so much more that you're getting access to. It's not just the Truth Project streams. You're getting exclusive content that's not even posted on YouTube. Updates on IRL events that you can even join, sign up for, and participate. Go out and see the fam. I mean, bro, what you doing with your life? Get it together and get it signed up, man, because you missing out on more than you can imagine. And it's all for $10. What other $10 deal you gonna get with so much value as this? I don't know. When you find one, let me know. So without further ado, we're gonna pray into this. And we're just gonna jump into some beginning reactions, man. I'm excited. How you feeling about it, PD?
Yeah, before we do, let's kind of set up what the conversation is.
For sure.
So they know what the conversation is about, and then they can track with us. They can follow with us from there, and then we can play the spots that you guys have been able to, put up for us to have as discussion tonight. But then we'll just give them some background to have a little bit of understanding as to why we're even having the conversation.
Yeah. So you want to do that now, or you want to do that?
No, go ahead and pray, and then
okay.
Don't you do that before we play the clips?
Okay, I got you. Yeah. First off, shout out Richard Jenkins, man, in the YouTube chat, man. I don't usually see much on here anymore, but when I do, and it's a topic like this, I'm on it. That's what I want to see. I'm liking it. I'm already loving it. This is going to be phenomenal, man. So let's send the invite, share this with people, Twitch, YouTube, Maverick, man, send this to people, man, and get people in here. It's going to be a good time. So let's pray and let's dive into this thing.
Let's do it.
Lord, we love you. We thank you. We ask that you would sit with us in this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. So the particular entry to this video is a discussion of a variety of topics in this whole conversation, but mainly speaking on the status of manhood in America. Okay. As we all are aware, if not from the news, from social media, there's a lot going on, man. It's a lot going on. It's a lot of just stuff happening between toxic masculinity, red pill, blue pill, green pill, all this other kinds of pills, masculinity. Men are struggling. It's a tough society for men, in particular, men that are growing up, young men, old men, middle-aged men, middle class, low class, high class, no matter what it is, there's struggle everywhere. And we have encountered a video that a very, I don't even know if he's well known, PD. I really don't even know his exact status. But the cat is amazing. Okay. And just spit some game to us on basically giving us whereabouts on where manhood is in America, and how it's impacting everyone else around us, from the family home to education to finances, all those kinds of things. And so that's typically the background. Hopefully I did it some type of justice to kind of give you an introduction to what we're talking about tonight. We've got quite a few clips that we want to kind of just listen to. We're going to pause, genuine reactions, live reactions, and we invite you guys' thoughts into this as well. So as you're watching, as you're listening, as you're taking notes, definitely drop your comments in the comment section, because this is going to be, I'm excited. I'm excited.
And so let me second what you're saying there. So, you know, there's a lot of people who would say that the Bible specifically speaks of manhood. I think the Bible speaks to us as males and not necessarily as to what is manhood. But I do believe that there's one particular passage of scripture that often is veiled and hidden, because really it starts talking about love. And then he ultimately attaches that to his manhood. And this is Paul in 1 Corinthians 13. But there's also some other things in here that we can see, right? In the text, like Proverbs 20:11, you know, that even a child makes himself known by his acts, whether his conduct is pure or upright, right? So it talks about him growing, who he is, transitioning into that. Numbers 1:3 refers to men being able to go to war. So this would not be a child who went to war. This would be a man, right? And so this would speak of modern adulthood, right? The ability to carry a nation's burdens and then to be able to fight. Then there would be like traits of maturity. Okay. So self-control, Proverbs 25:28, Galatians 5:22-23, providing for yourself, 1 Timothy 5:8, protection, not just physically, Psalm 127 verse 1, Ephesians 5:25-29, even in sacrificial love, wisdom, decisions along those lines. When you see somebody moving in wisdom, right? So when does a man become a man? When does a man step into this? What are some of the perils that we're seeing within culture, within the communities, within the world of maleness, manhood? And one of the interesting things I think is important for us to set up about this guy who's going to be speaking. First of all, Kerry Newhoff is the one who's interviewing him. Kerry Newhoff is a former pastor. He's still at his church. He's like a pastor emeritus at his church. But he doesn't preach or teach there every week. But his podcast is on fire. He does a lot. He interviews a lot of people doing great things. And this guy, just in case you didn't know, because this is what caught my eye, and I sent it both to Dion and to Great. The guy who he's interviewing is a straight up atheist. But the knowledge that he has about what's actually happening with men in this current state and where we are is what we wanted to talk about tonight, because it's spot on. There's a lot of it that's very true. There's a lot of it that's troubling. The information, the insight, the knowledge, a lot of it is very, very challenging for us. And so we want to look over the scope of this. And this is good. If you know another man, right now is a really good time to be like, bruh, you know, put your draft on this side, but be in this conversation, right? Get in this conversation, be here, because we want to jump into what this really looks like and some of the things that he has to say here. We're gonna comment on those things. And if you have comments, we'll do our very best, of course, to look at those in real time and then see what you had to say, and then circle back to them so we can keep some dialogue going here for the next hour or so.
All right, man, I'm excited. So let's dive into this. You guys, before we get to playing, I want you guys to type a 1 in the chat if you can see what is popping up on the screen. Let me know. And we'll get things going.
And yeah, they should be able to see it. We should be all good.
They should be able to see it? Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Let me... That should be good. All right.
You know, you said something that resonates. I think we're around the same age, and it was easier back then. You know, I had mediocre high school grades and got into university by the skin of my teeth. And really through a French class, I basically failed my final year of French and begged the teacher to give me a passing grade, and he did, and that was the prerequisite to what I got into at university. It paved the way. Once I hit university studying history and political science, my grade shot up because I was really interested in the subject as opposed to high school. But I don't think it's the same level playing field today, is it?
Oh, it absolutely isn't. As a matter of fact, I would argue that we have a lot of issues in the U.S., but relatively speaking, the U.S. comparatively, I would argue, has never been stronger. Our GDP growth is incredibly strong, strongest among the G7. Our inflation is the lowest. We created more jobs last year than in any year in history. We're energy independent. We produce more oil than Saudi Arabia or Russia. We're food independent.
That recently. Crazy.
We're the latest technological innovation that's created the GDP of Germany in the last 7 weeks. We entirely own AI. I mean, we're in striking distance of becoming the first really multicultural democracy of this prosperity. And yet we don't like each other. We seem to be raising a generation of Americans that don't like America. They don't feel good about America. The younger generation is the most anxious and depressed on record. And it comes down to what I would call this fairly significant selfishness, as evidenced by a Congress that's the oldest in history, average age 63, that has slowly but surely transferred wealth from young people to old people. The average kind of, silent generation when they were 25 was making on an inflation-adjusted basis at $105,000. We were making about 80, and 25-year-olds right now are making 50. So they have, and then if you look at the things they really need as a younger person or they're saving for, education and housing, those things have exploded in cost. So their purchasing power has gone down, and the things they are saving for and need to get ahead in this world have exploded in cost. And this is in the face not only of incredible prosperity, but platforms that remind them every day that they're failing. Oh, you don't have a six-pack? Oh, you didn't make $3 million trading Dogecoin? Oh, you're not staying at the Ammon Resort in Utah? You failed. You can't afford an $11,000 Birkin bag. So you have this incredibly anxious generation, and you have the average 70-year-old is 72% wealthier than they were 40 years ago. The average person in the age of 40 is 24% less wealthy.
Wow.
And the incumbents will plead complexity. It's not. These are conscious decisions. 9% cost of living adjustment in Social Security last year, but the child tax credit got stripped out of the infrastructure bill. So I think young people have every right to be upset, and it all leads to the same place. For the first time in our nation's history, a 30-year-old isn't doing as well as his or her parents at 30. That's never happened in our history. And I think it creates rage and shame. And then when you have these shocks, whether it's COVID, whether it's Black Lives Matter or the Me Too movement, which are all what I'll call righteous movements, or that COVID was, a real shock to the system, everything's worse because our most important asset, our young people, feel disenfranchised and quite frankly abused, and like they don't have the opportunity their parents had. And I just think it creates rage and shame. And that rage and shame is speedballed by these platforms that remind them of their failure every day.
Man, okay. He said a lot. All right. That's crazy. That's crazy. When I first heard it, and I'm hearing it again, that is crazy. I'm gonna open the floor. PD, what are your starting thoughts on that?
Yeah. So as you open the floor, we would love to hear your thoughts and or opinions. Post them now. If you have thoughts on this, I'm gonna try to make this very brief, but just tell you there's a couple of things that really stuck out to me in here, gentlemen. And if there's any ladies on here listening, just regarding males, just in general, listen, for the first time in history, 30-year-olds are not doing better at 30 than their parents did at 30. For the first time in history, this guy, because he's economically savvy, he understands some things about the global economy, has a pretty good grasp on this. So I trust what he has to say regarding this. 30-year-olds are struggling. There was a movie that came out a couple of years back, probably a decade or so back, called Failure to Launch. It was a movie about a guy who never grew up. And he basically just kind of lived with his parents. He kind of didn't have a job. He kind of couch surfed, did some things along those lines. He just never really moved forward in life. He didn't have the passion to move forward in life or the desire to move forward in life. And he had friends, grown adult friends, and they kind of catered to him. They kind of treated him like, he was a kid and stuff like that or whatever. Interesting movie. You should watch it. It's a comedy, but the guy never launched. And the reason why they even made this movie was because it was becoming a real epidemic even back then, with a lot of people failing to launch instead of just living with their parents forever. They never actually did that. But going back to the economic impact, he's saying that the consequences have been intentional through culture, that the economic impact is weighing heavily, right, on men now who at the age of 30 aren't doing better than their parents were at 30. And just to give you guys some context on that, right, most of us, so I'm 54, I'll be 55 in November. As you look at this, you got to take a look back and you start to see that, I'm doing better now, but there was more opportunity for me at 30 than it looks like it is for you guys now today. And so from housing to different things along those lines. I mean, I was talking to my dad yesterday and we were having a conversation briefly, and the house that I lived with him in, he was paying $290 something a month for that mortgage on that house. Now you got to think about it. The average house just in Phoenix, I'm just going to use Phoenix. The average house in Phoenix is about $410,000. It's the average house. That's almost impossible to afford on the salaries that people are trying to pay right now. So it becomes more and more difficult for young men to flourish. So he's speaking of that, and that is a problem. He also speaks of this part right here, that young men are more anxious and depressed than ever before. More anxious and depressed than ever before. I'm gonna tell you why this is troublesome for me, is because I'm starting to see that there are people in the world, there are young men in the world who basically live in this place all the time and they don't feel like they have any hope. Do you know that males commit suicide more than females do at alarming rates? And these are some of the challenges and the struggles that are actually going on. And I think it's really important for us to grasp this and to understand this. And the anxiousness now is also leading to a whole bunch of other things from more of a cultural perspective, where we're taking on ideologies and ideals of even hatred for this country, things along those lines, because we're busy just being anxious and being depressed and not thriving and not growing and not moving forward. Now, again, this isn't just every young man's fault, as he alludes to and points out to, and he'll say more about this as well. This is also a combination of things that's happening in the culture. And it's interesting, again, that this guy, while he's talking specifically on a human level, he's not introducing God. And as we go through this, I will kind of circle back through some of these later and deal with that. But those are the two things immediately that jump out to me, great, that I really wanted to kind of have a conversation about. Oh, also, lastly, he speaks of the fact that this is the most, so America is becoming more multicultural. And there's a challenge, there's a fight to keep America from becoming more multicultural. All of these things are impacting how we respond, how young men are responding. And like he said it, right? It's like, it doesn't even make sense, that from economics to relationships to everything else, but there's a battle for that. and on top of being depressed and anxious, on top of being 30 and not having the same economic opportunities to some degree that their parents had at the same age. So this is very interesting to see. Those are my thoughts right now.
Yeah, I love all of that. I think one of the first things that came to my mind as I listened to it and as I'm re-listening to it is just like the impact that anxiety and ego is having on this nation and on us as men in a lot of ways. So it's not even necessarily to think that like that is like everything that he's describing is all to blame on men or anything of that sort. That's not really where I'm going with the ego perspective. But when I think of ego, I think of like being so connected in some way to what was, and it causes worry for the future. And so you remain in a place where you're either stagnant and you don't move, or you move from a place of impatience and chaos that creates more chaos as a result. And it doesn't really create a better ending, a better view, a better life in a lot of ways. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that strikes out to me, because one of the biggest points that he makes in connection to that is the social media aspect. I mean, we're on social media 24/7. Like, you aren't going to find somebody who is not on their phone at some point, scrolling and doing something on social media, whether they're marketing and making money or they're just using it for laughs and giggles, like just on it 24/7. And I just wonder how often, man, like not even necessarily how often, but just how much are we consuming and how much of that consumption is really deteriorating our ability to be creative, our ability to tap into skills, our ability to just simply have a conversation in person. Like, it's kind of crazy how much social anxiety has built since social media has taken off in so many ways. Like, people don't even desire to have in-person conversations. And when in-person conversations are presented, there is so much anxiety that people can't even operate in such a space. And so I think with a lot of what he's saying, as much truth as there is to it, man, I almost feel as if, not necessarily from the inflation perspective or anything else, but it's like, not even necessarily who's to blame for it, but who's going to be willing to step up and take responsibility for the actions that are now necessary to get back on track. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of this, even what he said, as awesome and as insightful as it is, I feel like even information like this is oftentimes repeated. Like, people have these stats on repeat in a lot of ways, but there isn't a lot of, okay, you know, not only is this what you need to do, which he's different because he does give us that later on, but there's a lot of people that are like, man, that don't do this, where they're saying, hey, this is what you do. And this is how applicable and practical it can be for you to get to a place, not even necessarily to have the big houses, the nice cars, the big mansions, and all the dream fantasies that you've had in your mind, but to get to a place of stable living, to get to a place where you're actually able to lead a family, take care of a family, and actually pour into the community that you're around and be effective. Because the stuff that he's going to continue saying after this is going to be even more mind blowing, based on the family dynamics of households and what the responses are to that. And I also want to think and raise this question to you too, PD, and everybody else in the chat, man. Like, it's so interesting how the dynamic has flipped, where he's mentioning now, you know, women are just, you know, succeeding economically in so many ways. And we can talk that to a lot of things. Now, obviously, a whole lot of more opportunities for women. They're doing amazing. I mean, from CEOs, business owners, all these kinds of things are making more money. It's a beautiful thing. But do you think that as a result of that, that you would say it's almost a weird dichotomy to suggest that women are better off, or living better, not just living better, but honestly, yeah, I'll stick to it, better off in the state of position that they've been in, where they haven't made as much money ever before like they are now, access, without having to go the distance of giving something up morally to the point of their bodies to get it. And it's almost like it almost seems as if economically there's such a big power shift that this is where the ego and the man starts to stick out more in a negative way, where because you feel behind economically, you feel as if you've lost some sort of power potentially. And maybe that's due to a lot of the feminism trends and all those kinds of things that have taken place. But that's possibly what has crept in to keep men in this stable, or not stable, but unstable and stagnant position, which is a thought that's kind of, I guess, formulated over time as I'm sharing it. What would you think to that?
Good question.
A loaded one, but it's a
loaded question, but good question. So let me say this to you, man. You know what? Absolutely, positively, women feel like they're better off. This is why they now, when you date them, they get to tell you they don't need your behind. Because in fact, economically, they don't need you, right? So, but as he alluded to, this is part of the cultural shift. Now, here's where I think that we have to be careful. We cannot blame all of this on women, because this is what will happen. What we don't understand is that the culture shifted. This guy doesn't even agree with us morally, spiritually, but he points out, as you listen to the remainder of this video, which we're only doing bits and pieces, so I highly recommend everybody listen to it. He points out the fact that the way the system used to be set up, you would have this need. There was a need for this. And so now it's not there. So we have to come to the table with something different. The problem is the failure to launch. The problem is not doing as good at 30 as your parents were at 30 years old, right? The problem is all the anxiety, right? And the depression that's going on in men too. So you're bringing this to a woman who's like, wait a minute, hold up. I just started a company. I just started an online company. I just got promoted over here at this job. I got lifted up here at this place, and so on and so forth. So she's looking at you saying, hey man, you're coming as a burden, right? You're coming as a burden. I could pay for somebody to fix my tire, right? I could pay for somebody to come in my house and do the stuff that typically a man would do. Now you're showing up as a burden. So now women are demanding that you come with the bag. They're demanding that you come with the bag. And the women who are saying, hey, I want to keep it traditional and have a man, and the way that a man, we just have a man. Bro. Hey, those women are getting beat half to death on social media. They're like, girl, you better get yourself together. I don't know what you're talking about. So I would say to you that the impact of this social change has definitely caused females to say, I don't need you. So now men too are approaching women, even men who got the bag, they're approaching and saying, well, I don't need that from you. So we're a little bit confused because we're like, okay, well, what do you need from me? So I do believe that that's problematic because we're like, I don't know what you need from me. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I fit into your world. Make sense? Like I don't know. So we're having a crisis of identity and purpose when it comes to marriage and connecting. So we now have a culture of, hey, hook up. So women almost are more gangster than men when it comes to Tinder. Like, hey, I smashed and moved on. It used to be the dude who was like, I smashed and moved on. Now the women are like, no, I smashed and moved on. Right? I bounce.
You flip.
It's flip, right? I don't need you like that. I used you. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think that you're along the right path there. I think now that's why the conversation has shifted greatly to where there's a greater demand for men to have emotional stability now than there ever has been. Because if we go back and look to even what he's referring to regarding men who were once in their 30s who are our parents, like they had it better in terms of finances, so they were able to afford more. They were making less, this is so interesting, making less but was able to afford more because of the financial, balance and economic state. So if we go all the way back to years beyond even what he's referring to regarding just the parents and stopping there, I mean, we've talked about it numerous of times. Men held it down financially. Right. So women were in a position where they felt in a lot of ways they couldn't leave a bad relationship because, well, this brother is making the money. I have a roof over my head. I'm protected. Like if I leave this, I have nowhere to go. And right. So now that that's not the case, which I think from my understanding, and I don't want to misquote anything, I think from my understanding in studies, that's initially where the feminist movement originated from. This idea that women are able to get jobs for themselves, work for themselves, earn wages for themselves, so they aren't completely dependent on someone to do all of that for them. Of course, now it's a whole different world. I mean, it's turned into something completely different. But at the time, it was for them to have equal opportunity in some kind of capacity. And so now we've seen the shift where, all right, men are still kind of approaching and saying, yo, so I got the money, I got this, I got that, I'll pay for this, I'll pay for that. And a lot of them are looking at them like, bro, I can do that for myself. And if that's all you have to offer is what you can pay for, then this is a struggle. And this is what's so interesting. Now, that's not all that there is to the conversation, because the other half we're dealing with a lot of men who don't have that, nor the emotional stability, or they don't have the finances, but do have some level of emotional stability, spiritual foundation. And so because it's not a complete package where they have it all so young, that I think is what leads us to a lot of what he's about to speak on regarding the dating game, regarding men and regarding women. And there almost seems to be a unfair, unrealistic expectation in a lot of ways for young men to have all of this stuff outright by 24, by 23, by 25, 26. And so women are reaching these positions, and instead of actually potentially building, right, or anything of that sort, I don't want to spoil it, but we see what they're doing later on, and even now in the culture that's got a lot of men twisted.
But let me say this, because I think it's important to reiterate again. I'm not going to blame women solely.
Oh no, and that's
and I'm not saying you are.
Right.
I'm saying I'm not going to blame women solely for this, because society, culture has shifted it. The norms have shifted. So, and because they've shifted, man, women just slid into those spots. It became a thing. And in many ways, I think that we might have also created a little bit of this monster grape ourselves, because I think that we have minimized women in this culture to the point where when they did get the opportunity to show up big, they're like, I'm showing up big, like not giving women opportunities, man, to be in spaces and places that they more than likely probably belonged in. So for example, the two churches that I pastored, man, I'm gonna tell you this straight up. There be dudes who they're like, oh man, the man of God, he prays and this, that, and all. Like, I appreciate that, brother. But if I need a building, so the first building I got into, right? Hey, I was a woman in my congregation who was an architect, structural. She understood structures, engineering. I didn't need no brother in there who knew how to pray. I needed somebody in there who understood.
That's true.
that when we had to start building walls, when we had to start putting up monitors and TVs and sound in there and had to start, building a stage in that place and doing all this other kind of stuff. Hey, man, I didn't need a brother talking about, Lord Jesus, help us with this building and may the walls just shut. No, I needed somebody to come in and tell me what that was. So I would bring in females from this. And it was a weird thing, man, because people would give me a hard time about that. But I'm like, you acting like I said that she was going to lead the church. No, but she does belong at this table because you don't have this experience. And I think that we've let some women down in that space. And now that they've got that opportunity, they're like, yeah, I cannot let you pull me back to where the other women who fought for this came from before. So I do think that there are two things going on at the same time here, to be honest with you. But let's look at this chat also real quick, too. Kane said, well, let's look at what Twister said. I think you answered him. Or you responded. With the 30-year-old point, I'm wondering how long it's looking back, because I can imagine 30-year-olds in the Great Depression probably weren't doing. Yeah. So true, Twister.
Yeah, I don't think he's going that far back, Twister, into this conversation. I think he's just talking specifically like immediate, like maybe hit more so his pain. Now I don't know, maybe he is an older guy, so it's possible that it does reach back to that.
We're about the same age, so we're really only looking about 3-4 decades ago, so 30-40 years ago. We're not looking that far.
Yeah, okay, so it's not even 1920s. It's definitely not that far. I think you would have a good point in that, but in this context I don't think he's referring.
I can tell you guys, as a 54-year-old man, culture in the last 20 years has greatly shifted. And I do mean like a tectonic shift, like for real, like greatly shifted, big time, in many, many ways. Kane said, genuine question, is it wrong to need somebody for something? I don't have a lot of experience, but that seems to be the norm. Like it seems like needing somebody for anything is looked down on. You got thoughts on that?
I think he's gonna touch more on this as we continue reacting. But for brief thought, no, I don't. I think it's to what extent is somebody needed, because I do think in some capacity, again, there's so many extremists in culture that will go all the way to the place of individualism, where I don't need community and I don't need anybody. And it's me, myself, and I is all I got in the end. That's when I found out. Shout out, they're just singing out Beyonce. And then you have people that are so on the other side where they're codependent. So they can't imagine a life where somebody else is in a certain way for them to be okay. I need you for everything. Because I really don't know how to function and move in life without you. Like if you're not here, I'm unstable. And I think both extremes are unhealthy. So what's the balance in that? It's recognizing that, well, one, when I understand my purpose, my values, my boundaries, and dedicating to living a healthy, fulfilled life, I recognize that it's not that I don't need people, but it's that I don't need people to be a certain way for me to be okay.
Right.
And so then that turns into finding people that complement you because you recognize nobody can complete you. That is, I think, in a lot of ways where a lot of the mix up is. I don't think there's anything wrong with needing somebody. I just think to what extent, because truth is you could make up in your mind that you need somebody to a great extent, to the point of, hey, if you were to leave, I don't know where I'd be. We hear this in couples and relationships all the time. If you leave, I don't know what I'd do, and those kinds of things. And I think there's a certain degree there where that's true because you've built such a long life with this person. And so it doesn't feel good to think about a life where that isn't any longer available. And you think about the many adjustments you would have to make as a result of that person no longer being connected to you in such a fashion. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be completely unstable, unrested, and unable to continue living forward. I think if you get to that place, then we're at an unhealthy disposition, as I like to kind of describe it. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, Kane, and I definitely think in culture in totality, like, yeah, they definitely look down on that. But I think, again, people just take such extremes, because there are a lot of things I don't have the capacity to do that I need somebody else in my life to have the knowledge and wisdom to do, or at least show me how to do. Absolutely. So that way I can move forward and grow as an individual and continue pouring into other people. So this aspect that we don't need people is very, to the extreme individualistic, unrealistic. And there's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of behavior, there's a lot of lifestyle, there's a lot of different mechanisms that we all operate in that we had to learn from other people along the way of this life in order to even, put into play in our own lives. So anybody who says I don't need someone or I don't need anyone in my life is lying.
Yikes.
Lying. Like right. Straight up lying. Because you had to be connected to a certain amount of people, certain types of people, in order for what you reflect from your behavior to be the way it is. Because you didn't just get here like that.
Yeah.
So that would be my initial response. But I know that there's so many lanes and branches to peel that off of. Did you have any thoughts, PD, before we continue?
No, that was it. Twister said, I would say I'm a complementarian. I would make sense that men need women and women. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Mm-hmm. We agree. Yep. We agree wholeheartedly.
Yep. 1000%.
I think God designed it that way, to be quite honest with you. Mm-hmm. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, I'm gonna say this last thought. I think God designed it that way. A thought that comes to my mind, Queen of Sheba. That is somebody that in the scriptures that I just don't hear talked about enough. But Queen of Sheba, man, was a literal queen of an entire atmosphere and space, man, doing her thing. I think that on its own, in such a time as that, is marvelous. And I think it speaks to the capability of the helper to walk into such a space as that, where there's a season for them to help, and in that season of help they have an abundance, more of an abundance than the one who may potentially lead in such a space. Not to say that she was married, not to say that all those kinds of things, but I just see the impact or the implication of the wealth that she had, and knowing that it's possible for that to unfold, where a helper or a helpmeet or a woman has a capacity to make a lot, and in that same capacity be able to give it and help others, and leave an impact on where she's at and lead in such a way. I think that can definitely be a biblical precedence. So
Proverbs 31 woman.
Oh,
I mean, how can you deny her? The Bible says that because of her husband is well known in public places.
Because of her, not because of him, but because of her. So yeah. So anyway, I know we got more stuff. So heck yeah. So let's keep watching.
I don't know what your answer would be. I wanted to talk about the next generation. So I'm going to save my next question and just go a little bit deeper on young adults. I think that's a really succinct way of thinking through the challenges that they have. I do some teaching sometimes on finance, and hadn't done it in a little while. And I kind of realized post-COVID, like all the old rules are kind of out of the window. Just save your money, spend on less than you make, and one day you'll own a house. Maybe not in this culture anymore. You talk a lot about young, lonely males. Do you want to describe a little bit why that's the crisis that not enough people are paying attention to?
There is no group in our society that has fallen further faster than young men. 3 times more likely to be addicted, 4 times more likely to kill themselves, 12 times more likely to be incarcerated, 2.5 times as likely to be homeless. I mean, if you think about, we have a homeless, opiate, suicide problem. Yeah, but what we really have is a male homeless, a male opiate, and a male suicide problem. And unfortunately, because of the advantage that men have had for so long, and it's been such a huge advantage, there's a lack of empathy for them. And young men are just struggling. They're confused in the dating market. They're graduating. It used to be 40-60 female to male college graduation. It's flipped. It's about to go 2-1 because men drop out at a greater rate. And it has real impact because on our society, because women mate horizontally and up economically, men horizontally and down. And so when the pool of viable mates in the eyes of women gets smaller and smaller, you have less household formation. And now you have women dating much older because they want to date an economically and emotionally viable male. And so what do you have? You have a young man that doesn't have the same economic prospects as dad has. He has a series of algorithms and companies trying to segregate him from society to convince him that he doesn't need a relationship, he just needs porn. He doesn't need work, he just needs Coinbase and Robinhood. He doesn't need friends, he needs Reddit and Discord. And I would say of all the people I hear from on this topic, the ones I hear from the most and the most supportive are mothers. And it goes something like this. I have 3 kids, 2 daughters, 1 son. One daughter's at Penn, the other daughter's in PR in Chicago, and my son's in the basement vaping and playing video games. On any metric, young men are doing worse and have fallen further faster than anyone. And I want to be clear. Empathy is not a zero-sum game. Women still face a lot of struggles. Their progress is fantastic, and we should do nothing to get in the way of that progress. More single women own homes now than single men. It's great that they're in home ownership. It's great that there's college attendance. So my solutions always go to more, not a zero-sum game where we in any way slow down the remarkable progress. But there's just no grading around it. We're creating in a generation of millions of young men who are lonely and not economically or emotionally viable. And there is nothing more dangerous than a lonely, broke young man.
God, dog. I'm putting that on the pause right there. There is nothing more dangerous than a broke, lonely man.
Young man. So I want to invite you guys' thoughts on this. You guys listen to it. What are your thoughts? What are your immediate thoughts? PD, I'm going to come right to you. Here's a question that he kind of, that is culminated in the midst of all this. Is being home the greatest threat to young men? You mean never leaving home and being at home still after?
So never leaving home, and perhaps just not doing anything productive or creative that is reaching anything beyond the home.
I think so. Because of everything that he just shared in here. Okay. One is that basically the whole ideal is that if I'm here, I just get to be creative. I just get to do creative things. I just get to do video games. I just get to do these kind of things. My parents got it. They're there. I think a lot of parents too, for you all's generation, have babied their young people. They've kept them from doing hard things. They've kept them from experiencing and encounter challenging things. It's been so much of a shell and a protection,
a coddling.
And if the man in that relationship, the husband was like, hey, let them experience that. Let them go out there. No, that's my baby. And so on and so forth. So he started appealing more to his mother than he did to his father, who grew up like I did. Like, you had to bump your head. You had to struggle. You had to go through some stuff, right? You had to catch the bus if you didn't have a car. God forbid people don't have no car now. They like, man, I ain't got no car, man. I can't do nothing. Man, they was like, get on the bus. You had to get on the bus. You had to walk to the bus stop, go catch the bus to go to where you need to go. You had to catch the bus to go to work. You had to catch the bus to do all these things. But no, man, they were covered from these. They were kept from encountering this stuff, Grape. And so, yes, I think that being at home has its benefits. Watch this, has its benefits if, in fact, you are pursuing something. So, for example, it doesn't make sense for you to necessarily be out of the house as you just graduated this past summer, right? You were going to school. You had something in mind. You were doing something. So of course you should be there. But a young man who's just sitting around at home doing absolutely nothing for no good reason, doesn't have a plan, doesn't have a purpose, doesn't have a thing in mind. So what do you want to do? Oh no, I'm just going to see what happens. But you spend hours and hours, like he said, just playing video games. Hey man, you're being unproductive as a person. And so he's pointing this out, the impact that it has had on them. So I love what he said here, that we also have spent the majority of our time too looking at social media. So the algorithms have convinced us that you don't need a relationship, you just need porn. And it tells you, watching it all day, every day, it's telling you you're not measuring up. You're not becoming the person that you could be. You're not becoming the kind of man that you could possibly be, and different things along those lines. That's why we need to limit it to a certain degree, man, because the information that we're being inundated with, and again, some of the guys, man, that I know everybody likes to talk about. I talked about this at my men's thing a couple of weeks back, Wednesday before last, man, where I said, man, all these dudes on here telling you this is who you need to be. Even Jordan Peterson, I appreciate Jordan Peterson. And I believe that Jordan Peterson has some good stuff to say. Even the other dude, what's his name? The dude that's in trouble, sex trafficking cat.
Andrew Tate.
Yeah. Hey, man, listen, these dudes are telling you that if you're not me, then you're not a man. Basically, you're not a man if you're not me. If you're not me, if you ain't running the hose, if you ain't letting them know this, that, so on and so forth. Man, the ideals that we're getting from not going out and experiencing culture for ourselves and having those interactions for ourselves with other people from different backgrounds, people from different walks, people who aren't on a computer that you don't know, but people that you actually have to encounter day in and day out. That's how you're going to know. Otherwise, you take in this information, man, and you start trying to show up in spaces like that. And then they look at you like, bruh, what happened to you? Because you're so stunted as an individual, it's so difficult for you to be able to move forward. So he says in here too, that women and other people don't have empathy now for young men who are struggling because of the advantages of the past that men have had for so long. They're like, hey man, ain't gonna be no empathy for you, right? The only one who does is mommy. Mommy a lot of times is having that empathy for him. So she tells him he gets to stay there. He still gets to use the car. He's still taking their money. He's still sitting up eating all of their food. He's producing nothing, has no dream, no vision, couldn't even tell you about a dream or a vision, anything that he's trying to get to. So yeah, man, I think that it's a problem because, and I'll say this and be done, because he said young men today are more likely to be addicted, homeless, right? And shoot, I forgot the third thing. I was trying to catch it. Today, this is it. Addicted and homeless. Man, how crazy is that? How crazy is that? So yes, I think home is dangerous if there isn't the desire to support the ability to launch. Like I said in the movie early on, failure to launch. I think it's incredibly important, man, that issue does not exist, man, within that home where you're keeping a young man from launching and going into the experiences that are going to be difficult and hard and learning how to make tough decisions out in culture with other people, because you won't always be able to pick up your phone and call your mother. There's got some stuff you figure out how to do when you're in those situations and in those scenarios. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I'm liking some of the interaction in the chat. We're going to read some of those thoughts before we continue. I think for me, the only thing I would add to this is really my story and perspective. And as PD mentioned, man, so I just graduated at the time that this is being streamed. I'm 24. I just graduated from college at 23 years old last June. Took my last class and graduated from then, right? And so from then on, not necessarily in a position where I'm trying to figure out what to do. Like I have an understanding of the lane that I'm supposed to be in between content creation and putting my hands to what's in front of me now. And so, gaining the skill throughout college of video editing, content creation, copywriting, gaining the skills that are really, really necessary in so many other areas today in terms of just not just content, but businesses, entrepreneurs, and getting the skills of learning how to create and cultivate my own business. So that way, when I come out, I'm able to kind of put more time to that. And obviously, it's nurtured and it's grown and branched off to so many different things. I could not have told you in college that this is where I was going to be. I kind of had the envision that, hey, I'm going to get out of college. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to earn money and I'm going to finally, be able to be on my own. I think a lot of what he's speaking to in terms of, men falling behind and not feeling caught up or anything of that sort. I've felt that tons of times. It's not even like speaking from years and years ago. Like this is actually over the course of the last year of my own life. Like I've wrestled with it because I'm an individual who like, man, I'm ready to go. Like not even to say that I'm actually ready to go as much as like I want to go. Like I want to go out here and make the big boy purchases and be on my own and have my own stuff and, just be able to just be out on my own. And so I never really had, personally speaking, this aspect of being in such a low space and low state that I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. And every time it's asked, I don't know. I'm just chilling, going with the flow, seeing what's up. Whatever God has for me is for me, and putting everything on God and not putting anything to my hands. And so for me, the biggest challenge has been to stay back. I think that is something that actually should be talked about alongside with this conversation, because I agree a lot of what he said. And there's an aspect too, man, where there's young men who are coming up, just people, man, like stuff is so costly. It costs so much more to have just an average lifestyle in culture today and in the United States economically. And so it requires more than a minimum wage for you to get somewhere. Like you going to pick up a minimum wage job, unfortunately, doesn't suit you as well as it did, 15, 20 years ago or whatever the case was. And so you have to be able to be willing to take a step back and be in a space where you can cultivate skills, where you can cultivate something that's actually going to be worthwhile and beneficial to you beyond where you are now. And it's something that is going to be able to create something even bigger for you to continue bringing in some kind of income to then continue to think about feeding your family and preparing and doing those kinds of things. Like that's the way the economy is moving. Like I have a brother, man, right now. He's doing phenomenal. He went and got his master's degree. He's working, putting his master's degree to work. I believe that brother's making over $75,000 a year, but because of car note expensive, housing and apartment expensive, all this other kind of stuff, bro. Yeah, bro. We still need some level of assistance, and that is good money to be made. You know what I'm saying? And so, of course, obviously, a lot of that came with, an expensive apartment. When he downsizes and gets a one room, like it's going to be a lot less to pay, and he's not going to have to come out of pocket with that stuff. So obviously adjustments from graduating, it's going to make a big of a difference and he'll be good. But it's like, yeah, like that's a real thing. And so I think just as much as we can talk about the men who have no purpose and have nothing in common and nothing to do and not having the energy to do anything, blaming everything on society, everything else around us. And I'm trying to fight the white man and all that kind of stuff, right? From a black person perspective, like there's also a perspective of men and young men who are doing the right things. And it takes time because of the economic state that we're living in. And so being able to be in spaces where you are putting your hands to something, cultivating skills, honoring that, and being able to take those skills and earn money with it and continue to build and grow, that is beneficial. And I think there's a space at the table to talk about the need for time and the need for growth. And I think that's a wise decision to not step out earlier than you should because you want to be grown and pay bills and live your own life. And then having to move back in 2 years later because the stuff got too expensive and because you weren't able to keep up, because that's deflating. That's just as deflating as you would assume it would be if you didn't get it then and you had to wait a little longer. And so I think that's something that I've had to learn in my own life and understanding of where I am. And I've gotten to the place of recognizing that there's just a lot of wisdom to that, and it'll pay off and show later on. And putting my hands to what I got going. Like, bro, I'm at home with my parents as we speak. I don't get the privilege of sleeping in. Like I don't. Yeah, like, and that's just me. It's not even like they're asking me, like, you need to be up at that. Like, it ain't move like that. But like, because I know what I have in mind, what I'm striving after, what I'm putting my hands to every day, the people I'm serving, the audiences I'm serving, the spaces that God is calling me to and putting my hands to here. Like, I don't get that privilege, brother. I don't get that privilege to sleep in. I don't get that privilege to just sit down and play the game and tear up a bag of chips and chill and be loud and do like that would not even fly here if I gave that a chance. But that's just simply because even though I may be in a state where I'm at home, like there's a lot of purpose to where I'm at. And so it's cultivating and catapulting me to a greater space that's going to treat me, obviously, as I grow into it, beyond where I currently am, and impact so many lives.
I love that. And let me just say this to you, just to interject what you said. Great. There's some things that only are known fully when you experience them.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and this is why knowledge of something isn't necessarily enough, because things that you apply, applicable knowledge is the difference. Right. So I just need to share that.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to have those hard moments and those hard times. That doesn't mean that we can't go to the people who we need to help support us and, call on them and say, hey, can I get some support here, some help here, or whatever, whatnot. But I'll just use your brother, for example. Don't know the whole situation, but now he's learning something, even with the $75,000 rack, right? Right now he's saying, okay, that's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. So I can downsize, still enjoy myself, still have the things that I need to do, but then I need to tighten it up here in order for me to actually feel the breath and the space, the equity that I need to have and enjoy what I'm actually making right now until that changes for me in the future.
Yeah, I love that. And I think everything to what we just said is the exact reason why you need to be honest with where you are, because instead of pursuing after trying to make sure homegirl is in your phone and your DMs and you got everywhere to go and every place to spend your money, you need to possibly bow this one out for a little while and build and prepare. Because then you're going to be able to be in better positions to do a lot of things, and not just a lot of things, but just be in position to enjoy yourself in those spaces instead of stressing about, well, if I spend it here, then I won't have it here type of deal. And I think, again, that's a maybe another conversation as we move deeper into this, but it's honest stuff. So let's continue, man. Oh, before we go, shout out everybody in the maverick.tv chat. I'm checking YouTube and Twitch as well. Nothing there too much, but shout out to Kane, Sully, Twister. Twister said, with young men being lonely, I don't know if young men are more lonely now than before. I think men, for as long as it's been, have felt lonely in times in their lives. I just believe that the modern man is more vocal about being lonely, and there is an easier way to be vocal because of social media and whatnot.
I actually like that, except I disagree that we have always been lonely. But I do think that having the megaphone now certainly allows for us to express that loneliness and at a greater clip. Like he says, the tide has shifted. It shifted so much more now in this time than it ever had before.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Kane says, I agree with all that. I think the biggest issue is that mental loop of lacking success, bad habits and things like that. It becomes programmed in the mind and makes it hard to grow up, I think. Sully referenced a YouTube video that he had caught about PlayStation updates or something along those lines. The video was sponsored by a company promoting a male self-satisfaction device. Keep in mind, this video is about gaming with what could be assumed as a younger audience. It's true. We are taught we no longer need women. We have access to millions of porn videos and devices we can use to replace, quote unquote, a woman in that sense. Yeah, Sully, and it's dangerous, right? Because it is extremely. I think it's beyond dangerous than maybe what a lot of people, of course, younger people just can't comprehend. Like indulging into that stuff for so long will kill your want to even do it in real life when you get married. And it's like it does so much more damage to that. I mean, I'm talking about your brain, how you see people, how you see women. It damages so much, and it takes so much longer to rewire your brain. I think if you ask me, and this, I don't, this is just my personal opinion. I am not in an uproar, and I'm a content creator. I'm on the platform. I'm not in an uproar at all with TikTok being banned.
Me either.
Like
I can care
at all. And it's like, one, again, and we can have a whole discussion on it. I just think from the bigger scope idea, there are so many kids that are on this platform that are literally being indoctrinated day in and day out by the worst stuff. And we wonder why kids are out of control, have no respect for their parents, have no desire to do what's right and to live a righteous living kind of lifestyle. Like obedience is just non-existent. You've got kids that are self-diagnosed with anxiety, depression, all this other kind of stuff that they don't got a lick or a clue about. Now, hear me. I'm not trying to say that people who are clinically diagnosed in this stuff, it's illegitimate. No, I think there are legitimate cases of such. But really, what I think the case is people just don't want to actually be a part of their children's lives. So let me give you this electronic device to distract you and to just leave, so you can leave me alone and I can keep doing what I'm doing. I don't want to be involved in your life. I don't want to correct you. I don't want to discipline you. I don't want to lead you. And so this is why we get kids talking the way they talk, moving the way they do. And it puts even more stress on people who are around the initial main caregiver, because you don't want to do your role and do your job. And so now it's making other people having to step up and do what you should be doing. And of course, we can have these entire conversations of, well, I wasn't given the tools and I wasn't equipped and my parents didn't do this and my parents didn't do that. And of course, there's so much to that. But what are you doing now? What are you doing now? What are you able to put in your hands today that can actually change the trajectory of your life and as a result, the lives of your children? But because you don't care and you want to keep living a raunchy life, like it's affecting your lineage. And at some point, you have to be the one to say, I know it wasn't done for me, but I'm going to be the one to do it for those behind me and after me. Like, I'm going to put a stop to this. It stops with me. I know that didn't happen for me. I know. And guess what? This is where we have to take ownership and get around people who are going to do those things with us, get in community, not in isolation, be connected with people who can actually give us the resources and then take the resources and apply them, not just walk around with all this head knowledge and not do anything with it. But we have to take ownership and responsibility, right? Accountability is admitting, okay, I was wrong here. I was right here. All right, I'm missing this. I need this. Okay, I'm twisted and out of pocket here, and I'm aligned somewhere here. I'm taking accountability. That's ownership. Responsibility is now saying, okay, what is my job now that I know what I know? What's the next move? What's my job? And what am I going to do to actually move the needle forward to enhance my life and the lives that descend after me? So it's like, yeah, it's tough. I think for me, and I'm around, nephews and things like that, man, bro, they got electronics that I couldn't even fathom having at their age. My first phone was a flip phone at about 9 years old, I think, 10 years old. Right. I didn't get a whole touchscreen iPhone till like, I want to say it was 8th grade in middle school, and even then I wasn't allowed to have the social medias. I wasn't like, there was just certain levels to these things, man. And now these kids, man, got all kinds of stuff, bro, all kinds of stuff. And so I feel like for me, and I can't really commit to it, but you know, there's a possibility that if I ever have children, like, I don't know if I'm gonna be so willing to just give you an electronic device, knowing what's out here and knowing what's all twisted and turned. It take one wrong scroll, one untimely scroll, and you're gonna see something that you should have never saw. Just boom, triggered, trauma, all that kind of stuff. Like, nah, man, yeah. So kind of went on a rant there, but yeah, I think it's crazy, Sully. 1000%. I think it's crazy. Twister, I also feel like men back in the day didn't feel like they could tell anyone because it would make them less manly for being vocal about what they were going through. I think we still wrestle with that.
I think it's still true.
Yeah, I think we still wrestle with that. And I think you know, you might have men that vocalize it more, but these same men that vocalize it more either don't do anything about it in their own life or give the wrong tools to help somebody deal with it.
But this is the reason why we have anxiety and depression at an all-time high, as he was alluding to, because there's nowhere to talk about your pain, your challenge, your struggle, your difficulty. You don't get to talk about it. And then the people who are around you who are suffering with the very same thing, because it's called weakness, will look at you and be like, bruh, for real? Like, come on, man. Like, man, you gotta man up. Okay. Yeah. And no.
No.
That all sounds good or whatever, whatnot. But then look at the other side of it, right? It's like the implication of, man, you can box up something, eventually it's going to come out somewhere else. So it's coming out either in the porn situation, it's coming out in the failure to launch, it's coming out in the video games, it's coming out in the depression, it's coming out in the anxiety, it's coming out in being broke, it's coming out in being addicted, it's coming out in being the most homeless. The most homeless. Come on, man. Let's think about this. So we're thinking that somehow not saying it has healed us while sharing it and getting it out in the open, right? It gives us the opportunity for that issue to be addressed, handled, and taken care of. But when we don't, we're lying to ourselves if we think it won't manifest in some other way, because it absolutely does. And it is, even according to what he's sharing with us.
Yeah. So here's the last clip that we're going to pull up, and then we're going to come back and finish everything up. Again, we encourage you guys to watch this entire thing. There's so much that he just gives so much wisdom and insight to, man. And so we want you guys to check it all out. We'll put the link in the chats. And if you're a part of the Discord, we'll drop it in there too for you guys to check out. So this is the last clip. And then we'll come back and kind of have regular format.
I think you see a lot of when these men go down this rabbit hole where they feel rejected by society, by the economy, by potential mating opportunities, they become really poor citizens. They're more prone to conspiracy theory. They start blaming immigrants. They start blaming women. They start sequestering from society and never really develop the skills to be successful professionally. There are 3 million working age men under the age of, I think, 40 who've just given up on working. Half of millennial men aren't dating. They're not even trying, because they find it so humiliating and hard. And so you have a situation, and I relate to this. When I was a young man, I was unremarkable. I mean, I'm not saying that as a humble brag. I wasn't especially hardworking, especially smart, especially focused, especially good looking. I felt like I was invisible, living with my mom. And the thing that kind of saved me was America loved us. Like, when my mom needed money, there was welfare. When I needed money to go to college, there was Pell Grants. If I'd had to borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to college, I wouldn't have gone. I just wouldn't have the confidence to borrow that kind of money. And everyone assumes we have all these stories of these remarkable young people from low-income households that are geniuses. Well, I can prove to every one of us that 99% of our kids are not in the top 1%. And the real test of America is, what do we do with the 99? The 1% are fine. There's never been a better time to be remarkable. If you're a genius in math in the 11th grade, literally Microsoft's going to find you, at least if you're at a public school in Washington State. You said your son's a coder. He's going to be fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But most of us aren't. Most of us don't have our act together. And America used to be about letting a kid into graduate school at Berkeley with a 2.27 GPA. and making it free. And then I got my act together. And this is the brag. Last year I paid $14 million in taxes. So it's paying off. So I think America is not about identifying the top 1% in terms of the children of rich people or freakishly remarkable kids and making them billionaires. It's about giving the bottom 99 a shot at being a millionaire someday. And I think we've just lost the script. I think we have this optimism to the point of weakness where we have this lottery ticket mentality where we all assume our kid's the remarkable one. We all assume that our stock's the one that's going to go up tenfold. We all assume that it's like playing the lottery. I know it's stupid, but my ticket, baby, it's a winner. And so I think we need to be more focused on what I call the unremarkables and make a staggering investment or reinvestment in the middle class. The greatest innovation in history isn't the iPhone or the semiconductor, it's the middle class. And people think it's some sort of self-sustaining organism. It's not. It requires massive investment. The middle class was an accident in history. It's not a natural occurring thing. In 1945, 7 million men returning from war. They showed heroics. They were in uniforms. They were strong. They were attractive. And we gave them money. We gave them the GI Bill. We had the National Highway Act so they could have jobs. And quite frankly, we had a group of very attractive males that mated, created a ton of household wealth, created loving, secure households that brought civil rights into the discussion. We're confident enough to say it's time to share this prosperity with non-whites. It's time to bring women into the labor force and give them some of the same opportunities that men have enjoyed. Kind of invented liberalism and an incredible amount of empathy. We created so much innovation and so much prosperity that we had the tax revenue to start having influence all over the world and protect our borders and spend more on the military than anyone else in the world. And we get it wrong all the time, but our heart's in the right place. And this is still, I think, the best place to be born, but less so. And, there's never been, in America, there's never been a better time to be remarkable, or it's never been easier to be a billionaire. I think it's never been harder to be a millionaire.
All right. So there's, like we said, man, there's a lot with this entire video and clip. I think it just gives a broader perspective for me overall, and I still want to invite everybody's thoughts in here, man. So again, put your comments down on the recent clip, all those kinds of things. But I think this just gives, even with a statistical informative perspective, like just a broader scope of where men are and seeing honestly where the biggest disconnect is, at least for me and from my perspective. Like, we got a lot of people who are, you go on social media all the time and you see men and women going at one another. I think one of the most recent trends I've seen on TikTok is this drizzle. Comment a 1 if you know what I'm talking about when I mention drizzle, please. YouTube, Twitch, Maverick.tv, let me know. So this drizzle, right? Or soft guy era. Okay. So basically it's a more of a trolling tactic that men are using to basically expose the unrealistic expectations that women today have had on men. And so women will get on and, will share their stories on, whether it was somebody who gave them $30 for lunch and they sent it back because they were like, what the heck am I going to do with $30? Women who were upset that a man didn't offer to pay something. You know what I'm saying? And so it's stop sharing my screen. Okay, there we go. Hopefully we're all good there. And so just a lot of that stuff that's going on in the social media realm. And so men are just having a ball. And women are all flustered and uptight in some kind of capacity. And so just seeing stuff like that, men and women going at it, and there's no connection. There's no desire to connect. There's no desire to understand. There's no desire for context. But there's no actual, I just feel like there's a lot of voices out here that are putting out information but aren't giving you insight on how to take the information. and apply it into your life. No matter if it's a teaching setting, it's a tip, it's something along those lines. And so men are just struggling. And it's almost like, as you mentioned earlier, the megaphone, and we're real loud with a lot of it. It's almost like we went from being lonely in silence to being lonely loudly. But there's no transition from the position of loneliness to a position of thriving and putting your life in order.
True story.
Everything is out of order. We've put our own, we've put getting comebacks and get backs and revenge at the top of the list. We've put pursuing women and pursuing relationships before we even have an understanding of our purpose and assignment in life. We've put all these different insatiable, passionate desires as the front of the line, instead of getting aligned in what's most important to actually cultivate the healthiest lives we can possibly have. We've decided to take immediate gratification instead of living in delayed gratification in so many ways. And so that's kind of basically my overall takeaway from the whole video and the whole podcast, is just seeing where men are, listening to that being given statistically, giving even deeper insight to why women are dating up. Like, men are upset that women are dating up, but fail to understand that what women are looking for is something that you refuse to cultivate. So like, you're not even putting yourself in a position to be an option in some kind of way. And it's not healthy. And they're in the end looking for a place of security, and all you're bringing is your finances. But there's more to it than just your finances. There's spiritual leadership. There's emotional leadership, like all these different things. And so I just think it just gives us a good glimpse of that, man. What are your thoughts?
So we're the Truth Project. So what is the truth? The truth of the matter is that young men today are struggling with their identity.
Facts.
That's what the truth is. And not just whether they're a male, they're struggling with their identity, purpose. What am I set to do? They're struggling with the things that Adam was given to do, right? So when we go back to scripture, we see what Adam was given to do. They're struggling with the example that we see of the greatest man who ever lived, which was Jesus. His ability to be compassionate, yet stern, yet a warrior, yet connected to the Father, right? Yet he was able to be amongst other people. We have the blueprint. And so the truth of the matter is, culture only dictates to us, man, when we're disconnected from God. Culture dictates to us when we don't know our God identity, when we don't have that 1 Corinthians, right? 2 Corinthians 5:17 in our lives. If any man be in Christ, he's a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. When we don't have this identity great, when we don't have this settled in our hearts, then what we do is we go the way of culture, which is what he's saying. So the truth of the matter is that God has designed us in such a way that we can either flow with the culture or we go with what God has intended for us. And no matter what culture does, men thrive in those situations. Women thrive in those situations, no matter what would happen, right? Because we understand where we get our insight from. We understand where we get our wisdom from. We understand where we get our purpose and our plans from. We grasp this, we get this, great. But when we don't do this, man, what ends up happening for us is, again, we go the way of everything that he just said. Everything that he just said, which is the reason why I sent this to y'all, was because it speaks of the culture. But I see this crisis in the church with young men. I see young men falling prey to these things, man. This ideal that we all have to obtain, we have to get all this stuff. We have to be this person. We got to be that person. We got to do this. We got to do that. And it's all these, I'm this, I'm that. You're either big time or you're nothing, or you're acting like you're big time, right? You're acting like you're big time. You showing up like you're big time. Your clothes are acting like you big time, and you probably got it on Afterpay, Klarna, and all the other pays that you got to have, right? Because you don't really have the money to do it. You got to pay for it every 2 weeks or whatever or whatnot, and you really don't need it. That's why you got to put it on every 2 weeks of pay, right? Because, and I ain't telling you there's anything wrong with it, but it's a front. It's a front. I need to look like I'm going somewhere, even though I'm not necessarily in progress, right? Not true progress, where you can look at my life and you can measure and you can say, oh, I see where you're going. Oh, I see what you're doing. Oh, I see that you're making some moves here. Nah, it just doesn't, it's not happening like that. And so what I'm trying to say, man, is that we've largely lost, again, a lot of our identity. Young men have lost their identity. Young men have failed to launch. Young men, and because we're so interested in more creativity and things along those lines, and no rules, right? Like we don't want a bunch of rules, things like that. We don't want rules in the house. We don't want rules in society. We don't want those young men. And again, I wanted to get into this as we go. Man, you guys are more interested in breaking the rules. Like, hey, no, I want to break that. I don't want that to be something that's a standard and things that you have to do. You know, in business, there's some things that, yes, you can be creative with, man. The truth of the matter is there's rules that all wealthy, successful business people apply to what they do. That's why that's why they hang out with each other. Have you ever noticed that wealthy people aren't talking to the people that are not? Because they have those things in common. It's a commonality, right? They speak the same language. They have the same values at those levels. And this is what people aren't grasping. This is what people are not understanding, Greg. And so I'm starting to see that, like, rules are out the window. They're old. They're antiquated. You're just too old. That's not the way it is. We got to do it this way. Yes, you can be creative and understand that there's some standards that are necessary in life in order for you to keep doing life in a really good way. But I hear that too. I hear that like, nah, man, I ain't trying to do none of that or whatever, whatnot. But he said something in here that I think is incredible. And that's where I want to wrap up what I have to say here tonight. There's no other time in American history like now than you have the opportunity to be remarkable. No other time, because of the open doors, because of the possibilities. But you know what? It's going to take hard work. Nobody wants to work now. People don't want to work now. People, they want to be able to say, no, I'm going to come in when I come in, I'm going to do what I do. And if you tell me that I couldn't just be off without calling you and calling into the office and then you let me go, I'm going to have a problem with you. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to tell you, that's why I don't work here. That's why I don't want to do this. Because, man, I can't do this. I had a situation that I had to take care of. You know, nobody. But this is the best time, as he said, right now. This is the best time. There's no better time than now than to be remarkable. No better time than right now, great, than to be remarkable. And what I'm finding is, and again, young men might say, PD, you getting on us. I am getting on y'all. I am getting, because of how low the bar is, Mercury's, man, yeah. Yes, right? 100%. This is the time right now to be remarkable because it is so low. You can do amazing things right now, but you have to be willing to work. You have to be, so for example, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Do you want to watch the draft? You want to show up to the Truth Project? You want to, I'm just saying, what are your priorities, right? What are your priorities? Where do you want to be in your life? Like the things that you want to do. There's nothing wrong with watching the draft. I'm not telling you that's a bad thing. That's not sending you to hell. But I'm just saying, right? Where do people want to be in life? Like, what are your priorities? Because I'm going to tell you right now, the people out there that's really doing it, they ain't worried about the draft. They're like, bruh, them dudes getting their loot. I'm over here trying to do what I do. They're focusing on their lives, what they need to do. They're busy. They're taking care of stuff. They're invested. This dude talked about investing in themselves. It takes investment. And that's the thing for me, Greg, that I see that's missing, man, is that investment is critical. Investment is crucial. People have to be able, man, and willing to make that investment, man. That investment in yourself, man, in your life, you have to have it. And I'm not seeing that. So again, we're seeing the impact of that, not only in society and the issues that are there, but again, the disconnect from God, right? Which ultimately, again, leads to you to have an identity crisis and only identify with the culture and the way that the culture moves. Because guess what? God will tell you that his economy is not the same. Y'all, I'm going to try to say this real quick. Mm-hmm. God's economy is not the same as our natural economy, because God does stuff that blows your mind when we're following him. And so it goes beyond that. And this is why we need to hold on to those principles more than we need to hold on to even what this guy said. But this is the kind of conversations that we need to be having with people, because these are the two compare and contrast things that are actually going on that are keeping young men from actually thriving in life right now. A lot of young men just aren't thriving because they're falling victim to what culture says instead of what God says about them and the values and the things that God has aligned for us. He says here that culture used to give the bottom 99% an opportunity. Now they're only focused on the top 1%, which is the other thing too. Everybody else is trying to climb to that top 1%. And you got to understand, 1%, there's 7 billion people on the planet. 1%. Just imagine what that takes. No wonder we're jacked up in the head when you start thinking, I got to climb up to this massive place in order to be this amazing person at this level. It doesn't happen. Great. It doesn't happen. So what do we really need to rely on? Who God has called us to be. Right? So that's where my thoughts are. And this overestimation of ourselves, that we assume that we have the ticket to greatness. That's powerful. We don't. You can work though, and you can become remarkable at what you do. With this idea of like, yo, I'm gonna show up, and just because I showed up, you need to clap for me. Here's one other thing that I was thinking about when I was watching this the other day before I sent it to y'all. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things that we have in this culture that I don't like, participation trophies. Bruh, everybody gets a participation trophy. You lost. You lost. And they're going to give you a participation trophy? Why? Because are you getting a participation trophy? You lost. We're not teaching anybody anything about resilience, about understanding too that you're not always going to win. You need to know what it's like to take a loss. You need to know what it's like to take an L. You need to know what it's like for you not to be able to have put in your best and then be able to come back and be able to do your best. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. But culture is telling us that we're okay too. Culture's like, yeah, you're good. Here's your participation trophy, Johnny. That's a problem. We need to work on it. My 2 cents.
Yeah, I love all that. I think we're going to get to some comments. I was going to try to wrap up a little bit of my thoughts. Keyshawn, my pet peeve of the American school system, we encourage mediocrity. Yeah, 1000%. I think that's definitely present. I think a few of I know I had some other thoughts earlier, but I think just hearing you made me think of a few more. Like, I think that the God economy piece, again, it's definitely different from what culture will prescribe, because culture will make you feel that you're behind, and as a result of you feeling that you're behind, now you have to make rushing antics and rush decisions to try to keep up and catch up. And in reality, anytime you make a rush decision, it leads to greater poor decisions. And so it's really a loop and a trick of the enemy in so many ways, like to get you to rush and to get you to step out of things too soon. I think the God economy is so wrapped up in purpose. It's so wrapped up in understanding who God is and being connected to him, so wrapped up in walking step by step with God, that we get to know what's so interesting, I guess, as I'm saying this, one of the ways that you're hearing God correctly is you're not abiding by cultural principles,
Right.
standards, and notions. Like, I can't tell you how many times as I've been in the space that I'm in, and again, as I shared earlier, like I was, and I've been growing out of it, but I was heavy on trying to get up out of here. I didn't want to keep staying here. I want my own space. I want my own things, and I want to move on. And I think one of the greater frustrations that I worked through, man, was just taking a step back and learning to trust God with where I am.
Yeah.
And honoring God with what he's already given me, to the best of my abilities each day. And so as I've done that, and I'll never forget it, man. And I think I've shared it with Dion, but I'll never forget it, man. This brother woke up something in me when sharing the perspective of putting everything on purpose. If you really want to experience God, you will bank on purpose and you will put all your XP there. And it's amazing how somebody who can be so spiritually ahead than so many other people, older, younger, and indifferent, who is winning in all other areas of life, still finds a way to feel behind because you don't have what other people have at the age that they have it, at the state that they have it, at the amount that they have it. And so one of the things, and it's so encouraging to me. And so that's why, anytime I look to encourage people in the same manner, like, as long as you're in the lane of where God's called you to, you're gonna have to experience what it's like to trust him. And on the other side is gonna be an immense amount of blessing. And I don't just mean material blessing, as in, because you'll be taken care of, but it's more so just the wisdom and the experience, the emotional stability and understanding, the connections you make along the way to get you more to where you're growing, who you're becoming. Like, all those things can't mount up to the material things that you're rushing out to have, that you'll actually lose a lot quicker. I mean, who was the cat that just got put away to jail for fraud? He just got 25 years. Friedman. I'm forgetting his name, man, but this brother, man, was making a lot of money in the financial space.
Bitcoin dude.
Yeah.
Bitcoin dude. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Making buku money, man. But because it was in places of low character, integrity, because it was in places that wasn't aligned and honestly principles and standards of God. Like, in so many ways, just as quick as he made all that money, he just lost it and then some. And a good portion of his life is now being in prison. And I think that says a lot. And so I think the God economy in so many ways is not so much thinking that you have to get someplace, not only to feel okay. And it's making sure that I'm just walking step by step with where God has me. I wrote this down. And this is my own definition of greatness. I got Bible to back this up. I don't got no webinar, no Google definition to back this up. But greatness, man, by my own cultivated definition, being where you are and giving it your best each day. As simple as that. Now, I could get a lot more difficult, but basically being where you are and giving it the best you have each day. Because I cannot be trusted with greater if I continue to show God I care less about the least he's already given me. It's amazing how much we spend our time asking God for more and we ignore what he's already given us. We ask to experience God more and we don't read our Bibles. How does that align? We ask for more money, for more influence, for all this kind of stuff, and we don't put to work what's already here. So how can God trust that you're going to make the right decisions when he puts you in front of more people than what you're currently in front of? How can he trust you to not compromise on truth, on your values? How can he trust you that you're going to give more money when you don't even give with the money you're making now? How is he going to trust you? And I think that's something that always plays in my mind in any moments that I have where I'm like, shoot, God, I know I know you telling me to give this, but I'm just thinking about my budget. and this car I'm trying to save up, stuff like that. I don't know what you're trying to do, but there's a lot more times where I'm more inclined. The more that I think about it, that comes to my mind. I want to be an individual that God can trust with so much that he is not tripping if he gives me a multiplicity of something, because he's like, I can trust Sean that he's going to do the right thing and that he's going to honor me in that entire space. Same with relationships. It's amazing how many times we will profess to God that we want this marriage, we want a romantic relationship, and yet not only do we not cultivate the relationships that we already have, but we continue to disregard the most important factor to getting that relationship, to being in a relationship, and that's first connecting with God. It all starts there. And so I just think, man, in a lot of ways, piggybacking off of what you mentioned, man, I think you got to be willing to be okay with where you are and put the steps in front of you to take one step closer to getting to where you want to be. And I've been there. I have to catch myself in so many moments. It's not like I've completely overcome it. I have moments where I'm like, dang, if only I was making a little bit more, if only I had a little bit more, if only this, only that. But I have to get into those constant spaces of reminding myself that that's not all that there is to life. And if I really want to live a healthy, amazing life, not only does it mean that there has to be more to life than material gain, but it also means that I have to be more willing to enjoy the process of who I'm becoming. And even though I may lose people along the way, people that I thought were going to be connected to me that are no longer connected to me, the people that I invested, I didn't get a return of from that space. Even though relationships may fall apart, opportunities may go away, my stuff will decline, life just waves back and forth, man. It's honestly the stability in God that keeps me above the water and keeps me in a position, man, where I can continue to move forward and cultivate what I have. And so I think as much wisdom, like as he dropped on that, bro, I just think the biggest thing that I would ever encourage men to do, my age, no matter your age, it's just like, you got to learn to be present where you are. And you can't keep trying to chase after where everybody else is, because you're not only leaving who you are, you're leaving who you're called to be. And there are people who are depending on you to get to where God's calling you to be, waiting for you to get to where God's calling you to be, because you're actually the one person that has the capacity to do something about the situation they're in, and they could actually be set free and encounter the same one that freed you.
And we just talked about that with the satisfaction that we did, conversation that we had.
Yeah.
There's a lot to that.
Yeah.
Learning to be satisfied with where you are. Satisfied doesn't mean not moving progress. It means I understand where I am.
Right.
So I don't need to be somewhere else. I need to maximize this season so that when the next one comes, I can maximize it too.
Facts. Yeah. So I'm opening up, man, to the last thoughts here. There's quite a few comments in the Maverick comment section. D, did you have any thoughts, man? I know you hopped on. So
yeah, a little bit, man. It was about, I really liked your definition. I want to throw something at you guys, because re-say your definition for greatness.
Yeah. Being present. Being where you are and giving it the best you have each day. Yeah.
Man, I think I want to raise the ante. I think that's closer to a definition to a relationship with God. And I love that you even started to say something about being present. You almost slipped that into the definition on accident.
No, it's there. I just had that was the first. So the first one, doing what you're called to do with all that you have and being present, be present where you are. And so, yeah.
Because I love this conversation. I love where we started and where it ended with us being the Truth Project, because I think sometimes we can kind of Americanize the gospel a little bit to where it's just all about called to achieve this and make this. And there's like a cry for being remarkable. And it's like, you take that same theory throughout history, through different countries, even today, that's just not how the world works, and we think that we're experiencing God when we're getting blessed by God. I was talking to someone that had things that were going bad for them, and they were just praying to God. They're like, why, God, why are things going bad, and what did I do? And then like things started going good for them, and they were like, okay, you know, God responded, God loves me, and we're good again. And I'm like, man, and we were kind of talking about it, and it was like, man, that could be the case, or it could just be Thursday. And what do I mean by that? Like, there's good things that happen, good things, and then there's bad things that happen to everybody. Like, there's no pastor, there's no guru, there's no yogi that reached a certain level of enlightenment and they've gotten so close to God that their family members don't die, they don't get laid off, they don't get hit by other people in traffic, they don't get flat tires. It's like, well, I don't know. And I think sometimes we try to, and it's tough, almost hard to explain, but it's almost like we try to put God in places where, I don't want to say that he's not at, but we almost try to create stories that I don't know that God is trying to tell, just like we do with the Bible often. And I think what's closer, because here's the thing. Let's say you are called into, let's say, ministry. That's even super special. That's holy, right? You're building a church. And let's say you do build the greatest church ever. Like, you still gonna die, you know? And then you might give the church to your son and he might fluff it up. Like, I've seen that. I'm watching that happen to certain church. It is like, okay, so wait, did God like get the purpose thing right and then he kind of juggled it, or is your work ruined now? And I just think sometimes we try to create, or we miss God in all the wrong places, man. And we try to put him in all the wrong places too. And so I love what you're saying, like in every moment, because I think someone that is on their journey, and I'm saying journey, like maybe like a career wise, they think that once I get to the calling or accomplish the purpose, then I have access, or I'm experienced or walking with God more, or I've like gone over the hump spiritually. Okay, so then it's like, well, what's up then? Then you have another hump to climb. And I want them to understand that you don't access God anymore when you are the pastor that had the idea of the church. Like, that day, you have just as much access to God, to love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, all this stuff, as you do the day that the church is packed and it's a mega church. But we don't look at it that way. And you can't give that gospel to a kid in Africa or to a kid in, like Israel or something right now. Like we think that we're nothing. If we're not remarkable to the world and to culture, that we missed purpose. And it's like, no, it was there every day, the whole time. You were just so, you're clinging to this made up view of purpose that you have, especially here in America. And so I love everything that you were saying there. And I thought it was powerful. I think it's even a bigger definition in which you have it. But I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Maybe I'm tripping.
No, I think that's really good. I think it's important. I think I'm learning, honestly, because again, I don't have it all together, bro. But I think I'm learning, just experiencing God in the space that I've been in. Like, it's just better to be where I am instead of trying to chase after something as like a means to an end or a source of validation. I've been there. I've done that. It didn't do anything for me. You could not have told me that, basketball, like I really was chasing after that thing as if like, once I got that contract, boy, I'm straight, I'm set. God done bless you, but we're blessed in the city. You know what I'm saying? We going crazy. That contract never happened, never came. Actually, I felt relief when I gave that mug up. I felt mad relief. Like, I was actually able to enjoy the sport again. Because there were so many times I went into the gym feeling like I had to be the best on the floor in order to get to where I wanted to go. And there were days I was, and there was days I wasn't. And I went home and was salty, was pissed. I'm recording film, so I'm going back. I'm not even clipping nothing. I'm just watching because I need to see what I did wrong so I don't do that again. Like it's one of those things, man, that I'm just constantly growing in. And I feel like there's just such a level of peace that I get every time I step in this room, every time I wake up in the morning, where I'm just in a space where I'm able to remind myself of what God says about me. I'm reminding myself of everything God is putting in my hands to do, and knowing that he doesn't have to say something every day to know that I'm on the right track. I'm getting there. Like I've gotten into the spaces where I just sit there, man, and I don't got nothing to say, Lord. I'm good. I thank you for another day. And I'm journaling. And the scripture that I write out first every day, I guess it's now intentional, but it wasn't at the time. Proverbs 3, verse 9 through 10. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce. And then he will fill your barns with grain and your vats will overflow with good wine. I'm reminded of that every day. So every time I step in here, man, I know that there's something being done today that's going to be beneficial for my tomorrow in some capacity. If it's waking up on time, if it's building consistency, I've had my moments, my weeks, my days of frustrations because things aren't going the way I want them to, or I don't feel like I'm making any progress. But that's stuff that I take back to prayer. I get refreshed and I come back in here. I'm not throwing in the towel because it's one of those moments where I'm like, if I'm not supposed to be here, where am I supposed to be? I think that's kind of one of the signals that lets me know I'm doing what's right. Like if I'm not supposed to be here, I honestly don't know where else there is to be. And it's not that I'm here because of views. I don't got that. It's not because I got, you know what I'm saying? It's not because I'm getting all the money. It's like, no, bruh, it's not. This is what I'm called to do and called to be, man. And of course, along the way of building that, I have to, earn an income and build and do things, put my hands to stuff that's actually bringing the income to prepare for what I'm looking to do and all those kinds of things, honoring that. But yeah, I think everything you said there was good. I don't have to get there in order to feel great and in order to live my best life. I can live my best life now. I can do that. It's accessible to me. And it starts with God. So that's my spill. PD, what's your thoughts?
You guys are way ahead of where I was. This is the beautiful thing about what we've been talking about here. And, D over the past 3-4 years has, really allowed me to see somebody who is also thinking more deeply about life in general, because I'll be honest with you, I probably didn't arrive to this place or start getting close to this place till well into my 40s. There was always striving that was going on. Even when things were going really well, there was always striving that was going on. And the beautiful thing about it is what Dee said is the thing that was probably kind of most eye-opening to me, that made me go like, man, you wasted a lot of time. I had the same access to God that I had when I first met him. I got the same access to him. We will look at the progress and we will think it was our ideal. I don't have a smart enough ideal to start a church. Only God could do that. I ain't smart enough to start it. Oh, God is. So I don't even have that. So even in that, we have to be careful not to make sure that we try to take credit for those types of things. Any great work, I can't find this quote anymore, but I saw it the other day and it messed me up. This dude said, any truth that is a truth is because God is the one that revealed that truth. Anything that's great is because God allowed that thing to be great. I couldn't agree more, man. And I think that one of the things that we need to know in here is that we have the same access to God right now, what Dee just said, which is so powerful, man. It's so important for us to understand that. We have that access now. That access. And if we only enjoy it on the mountaintop, but we don't access it when we're walking through the mud, we have missed the point of what it means to actually really genuinely experience God. We've missed the point. if I'm only waiting for mountaintop moments to be like, praise the Lord, I'm going to miss God by a mile. I mean, by a long mile. It's not always on the mountaintops. That's why we have Psalm 23. And David saying, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil because you're with me, right? So David even gives us a clue. You're with me. That's why, right? I have access to you all the time and what I'm doing. And so I think that's where we need, that's where we need to be, man, for sure. And again, at the end of the day, circling back to it again, who has God made me? In spite of what culture does, in spite of what happens, I do see the impact of these things in culture. My challenge is that the men of God are falling prey to these statistics that we're seeing that this man was talking about. That's where the challenge is.
Yeah, beautiful thoughts. I'm going to wrap up with the last few comments in the chat. Ask a couple quick speed round applicable questions we can apply at the end of this, and then we'll get up out of here. Shoot. Yep. They were speaking about earlier on the outlets and comments made like that. Keyshawn said it's sad. Part of it is men already think that people don't care about their feelings. So you find ways to numb the pain, porn, video games, even to the point of trying to change yourself. Yeah. And I think that all is pointing to, again, what we've been talking about this whole time, right? Identity and needing to get connected to that. Kane says this, making a good point to Twister's thoughts. He said, you think just like the way culture, society is shaped plays a part too? Like the isolation of COVID, there just not being a lot of things, and not a lot of social settings nowadays. Twister said, yeah, I think society is definitely catering to the weak and the feeble and encouraging more of the dependency issue, 100%. However, I don't think it's society's fault entirely, but it's definitely contributing. With all the economic markets, they are all catering to making everyone, women included, being dependent on the products being offered. It makes them more money if we are not, if we are dependent on it. This is interesting. Interesting thought there. Sully said his older sister was always mad because she got a flip phone when he was 7th grade, got an iPhone in 6th grade, and now I have a 7-year-old cousin with a smartphone. Yeah, times have changed. So closing thoughts here. Twister said, yeah, it's an interesting one. He says he doesn't think he's remarkable, but he's a programmer. 26. After this next raise, he's going to be making 6 figures. He has a wife, a child, 4-bedroom house. But he thinks the hard thing about catering to the middle class is the issue that the job market is shifting to more technical and advanced jobs because society is shifting to everything that is technical and advanced. But the thing is that I knew I wanted to be a programmer since I was 16. And because I knew I wanted to be a programmer, I shifted my focus from an early age to do that. So I graduated college at 20. I think it's hard work type of deal for me. And I feel like there are a lot of men that just don't want to put the work in. Yeah.
Yeah, true stuff.
I feel that. Keyshawn mentioned it's a lot of pointing the finger now, furthering the divide to the point we may go extinct. Yeah, no, I don't think it'll be to the steps of going extinct. I do think though it's just destructive, right? I don't think there's any purpose to it. I think one thing I've learned as I've just continued to fill my mind with people who are doing the work, who are healing, who are in the business of helping others heal, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all these other kinds of things. Like it just, when you know who you are, you know who you're called to be. Like the people's opinions of you do not get to define you. They just lose that power and privilege. And I just think oftentimes, man, people, we can easily get into the space of allowing somebody's no to affect us to the point where we feel we're incapable of not only getting someone's yes, but we're incapable of doing anything with our lives after that. And I think that's just giving somebody too much power, bro. And I think the way that you adjust from that is just knowing who you are. That's why I consistently repeat to people, when you establish your values and boundaries and you encounter people who either do not honor those, don't reflect those, or simply say, hey, it's not something I want, you need to refer back to your values and boundaries to even make sure if that was the right direction to go in, and then to readjust if it wasn't. And to people who say no, hey, bruh, deuces. I guess it doesn't have to be something that I continuously cling on to and continue to make room for. I just think it's not something that has to be done. And the times when you do that, you should pause and ask yourself, what am I pursuing after this person for? What is it that I feel I'm missing that they give me? And I think a lot of times the root of it is validation. And I think that is the issue. And I think when you learn that validation doesn't come from external things, but it comes inwardly from your connection to God, when it comes inwardly from you spending time with God, because he's filling you up with purpose, he's filling you up with understanding who you are and who you're called to be, it's a different world. Not saying you won't experience hurt, but it will not get to define the rest of your life. It's a different world. So here's the quick round of applicable questions I wanted to add to the end of this, and then we're good. So for both of you guys, where do men go from here? From this conversation, listening to this, what is one step that you would suggest for men to go? Where do they go from here? What do they do?
Well, if you ask me, I think that the most important thing is, again, the thing I said about having an understanding of why I even exist. Why am I here? Not so much why am I a male, but why am I here? If I understand why I'm here, then the answer to why I'm a male is included in me understanding why I'm here. I have to go to the maker to tell me why I am here. I also have to take a really good assessment of my life and ask myself why I am where I am, what has caused me to get there, and then be incredibly honest about that. Looking at that, I have to really be willing to do a self-assessment on that and not blame other people for why I am where I am, and know that I have the opportunity to turn it around if I want to, and reach out to the appropriate people who I believe are doing what I envision doing myself. When I see it, I gotta move towards that.
I like it. D?
I would, I think, because there's almost like there was two questions going on, or two conversations we're having. Like, one in the very real three-dimensional world where you got to have a job, you got to make money. It's tough. It's confusing out here. On that end, I think, find a high value skill and stick with it. And there's so much towards self-control, right? Like, get up, don't get away from the vices and do the things you need to do. And then I think how to get to that is partly some of what you were just talking about, Grape, is like, as I get older and I learn more about God, I look at self-control completely different. I thought self-control was how most people try to get it into you. They just yell at you. They're like, you got to do better. You're supposed to do the things you don't want to do, and then you'll be self-control. Andrew Tate will get on, he'll be like, you're a brokey. You got to get up. It's going to be hard. You got to do these things. And I think the scary part is that kind of gives us self-control. I just don't think that, I think that gives us an illusion of self-control. I think self-control is just a fruit of the spirit. And so I think you actually get that not by working to it, and it's not like a discipline. I used to think it was more like a muscle you work, but actually I think it more so comes from being filled up from the spirit. But when we say that, I want to be careful. I'm not saying like you go to church and you read the Bible, and because you read the Bible you feel a weird feeling flowing through you and now you have self-control. I'm saying you need to do some of the other stuff that's in the Bible that you're reading, where Jesus talks about picking up your cross daily and genuinely letting these selfish desires, you clinging to all these outcomes that you need to do. When you let that stuff die, what is flowing through you, when your will dies and God's will comes alive, self-control is different, because you understand that the whole reason you couldn't control yourself was, let's say you were trying to be on a diet, okay? But when you were trying to follow and you knew what you needed to eat, all those temptations and those cravings, right? You weren't okay on the inside. You had, maybe it was stress and you had to go to the food for that. And so you you have these things that you do to become okay. That's why you needed the pornography, because you weren't okay. You weren't flowing. You didn't feel peace, love, joy. And I want you guys to think about it. When you feel full of love, joy, peace, your heart doesn't even want to go to pornography. Even like the ninja that goes to it daily here, right? There are moments, little pieces in your life where you're like, yo, I couldn't even imagine going to it right now. And that's more of what it will feel like. Just like after you just ate your favorite food, if I were to bring you another plate and you were full off it, you'd be like, no, I'm good, man. If at the moment you finish, let's say it was a burger, let's say you finished that burger, another one popped up, you might eat the second one. And then after a while, if they just kept popping up, what you gonna do? You gonna start giving them away. You gonna be like, Grave, you want a burger? Petey, you want some? Twister, you want some? And that's where the self-control comes from. Like, it's not hard to not overeat when you're already full, because you don't need nothing. You're like, no, I'm good. They could bring out all the food. You're like, I'm good. Not gonna touch it. They can bring out all the sin. You're like, nah, I'm good. I don't need the pornography now. I'm already full. And that's where the self-control comes from. And so I think if you just go to God, which is letting your selfish desires die, not necessarily just reading your Bible, that's a means to an end, not just going to church. That's not your relationship with God. That's the church you go to. Reading the Bible isn't your relationship with God. Okay, that's reading your Bible. The worship songs, right? You're going to these hot spots thinking you're getting closer to God, but you're still clinging to all those selfish desires. And that's why it feels like none of that stuff is working. And so I think if we can realize, PD talked about like the reason we're here, man. Like, when you really boil this down, of course, I think God does amazing things through all the things you guys will accomplish. But all that goes back in the box for you, fam. And so there's something on a day-to-day level that is trying to have an experience with you, to fill you with love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness. There's one more, patience, all the fruit of the Spirit. You see, it's the fruit of the Spirit. It's not the fruit of Grape's hard work. It's not the fruit of PD reading the Bible. It's not the fruit of Dion building discipline and not watching pornography, not drinking, whatever. You're got the story in your head. And so I think if we can all try to get to God in that level, the second part of being significant, being controlled, and building the money that you're trying to build, all of that comes a lot easier. Did that make sense?
1000%. Thank you. All right. Made a lot of sense.
That's my only answer, man, because this is supposed to be a lightning round, and I didn't took up like 8 answers worth. So PD got the rest.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that was good. They can definitely replay that. What I did was I dropped in the link of the YouTube and Maverick TV combo or chat, Man Enough Challenge. I think it's a good resource for you guys to check out, to start kind of applying this self-control applicably. And go through that, abide by the rulings and the settings, journaling. I mean, just getting to the root of a lot of that stuff. Really impactful and really beneficial. And I encourage you guys to check that out. So we appreciate you guys for checking out this new format. You know what I'm saying? Reactions. We're definitely going to do more of these. We got so many videos in the chamber. It's crazy.
Let us know if you liked it. Actually, I enjoyed it. To be honest with you, I thought it was really, I mean, we're kind of reacting to the stuff that I do, but when we find something like this too, I think that we can really kind of dig our teeth into. I think this is really good. So if you're good with it, D, and we can do this from time to time, that'd be great.
Mute it. Yep.
I love it because it's super practical and it deals with what we see, hear, and experience on our day-to-day level, man. Because sometimes the church can be super vague and Christianese, you know what I mean? I like this. This was great.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yep. Sully, I enjoyed that. Twister, I think the live reaction was pretty good. Keyshawn, it was great to me. I love it, man. Yeah. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get together, try to see how often we can do this a month. And kind of turn it into something that's a regular part of the discussion. I think having a question after the pause helps with the discussions. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll keep that noted for sure. And we're gonna try to mix these in, man, because I enjoy doing reactions. If you guys catch any of my YouTube videos in the past, that is something that I've grown to enjoy, and something that I typically like to come in and just give some practical applications to things. And so definitely excited to bring that here. So we'll have more of it. I think homework this week, we're going to continue Isaiah. I'll find out the chapters and drop them in the Discord. I also think, man, I would challenge you guys to go through and watch the rest of this podcast. Go back, watch the original podcast. I think there is a lot of things that you're going to get from it. Yes, he's an atheist, but if you add, like, he gets deep though. And he, in some way, shape or form, and maybe unknowingly to him, is applying spiritual principles, bro.
Absolutely.
Like
100%.
1,000, like, bro.
Which is why it was so interesting.
Right.
His atheism is here, man, because he keeps ultimately speaking back to purpose, which only can be found really in God, man, at the level that he's speaking of.
Man, like it's awesome. So I'm gonna drop the link in the Discord and in this chat. I see you guys asking. I don't remember the guy's name.
It's
but sharp guy for sure.
It is.
Copy that link very quickly. Drop the link for the pod, Sully and Key. I don't remember his name, but sharp guy. And I'll drop it in the Discord as well for you guys to check out.
Professor G.
Professor G. Okay. So, man, I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, man, like there's so many evolutionary psychology videos that I've watched. I've tried to break down and just learn more about. That's definitely something that's rooted in a lot of the relational divide in today's culture. People using it wrongly and people allowing it to be a defining thing for them. And so trying to recenter, and how is it possible that we can use evolutionary psychology to our advantage as believers without abandoning what we believe to connect with people? That, I think, is the challenge, and something that I don't think many people talk on these shows. And so, so much other stuff. So won't hold you guys too long. I don't know if the draft is still on. If so, go enjoy it. I'll drop the homework in the Discord. We appreciate you guys so much. I want to first shout out a comment in the Twitch. Chapter said, I genuinely appreciate this conversation. So we appreciate you, man, for coming through. And everybody on the YouTube side, Richard Jenkins, I hope you stayed for the duration of it. Anybody else, those 6 people who are catching it live and those who watch on the replay, we appreciate you guys so much. We hope you guys are coming back to us next week for another conversation. And we're excited to bring this back to you guys as soon as possible. So just be on the lookout for it. And we appreciate you guys so much. And until our next conversation, before I sign off, let me get Luke. See. We are ready to wrap up. Before he gets here, and before we wrap up, oh, he's here. Never mind. I was just gonna ramble on something random, but never mind. Yeah, we appreciate you guys. And as always, until our next conversation, be easy and be breezy. God first. God bless.
Peace.